Excited to be live, doing it in English and doing it with my business partner. An amazing coach. He should be on. There we go.
There we are.
Hi.
Hey. All right, we're live. First time we finally get to go live.
I'll probably get the headphones. Yes, first
Yeah.
time. You to my audience, and then you can introduce me to yours.
Yeah.
This is my business partner, Chad Whitman. We are doing coaching together, combining our skills and knowledge that Chad's been coaching for quite a while. He's an ex top executive. He's going to introduce himself in a bit, but he combines the knowledge of the business world and just psychology, understanding people. Is really good at it. And yeah, well, you know my drill, all the esoterical systems, and yeah, together we've been doing it since, well, beginning of this year actually started.
Yeah.
And this is our first live, so I'm really excited. So welcome, Chad.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm excited to eventually post this and introduce you to my audience, as small as it might be, because the coaching I was doing for a lot of years was therapy for me. I was coaching people as I was going through some really hard times. And when I met you, you introduced me to these systems, these esoteric systems that I used to think were some woo woo black magic, honestly. And they blew my mind so much. I mean, they literally brought me to tears when I saw myself correctly because it confirmed so many things I had experienced. And when I started to apply it to my kids, and then I brought you into my coaching calls with the CEOs I was working with and the individuals, we watched crazy transformations happen between our two styles. Mine is one of lived experience and in the moment intuition, and yours is deep understanding of multiple esoteric systems. And I've been dying to tell the world about what we really do because we've been helping people in a way that is so fulfilling
Mm.
and is beyond my wildest dreams. I've wanted to do something like this for so long, but I was missing this piece, and that piece is something that you brought. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. And I told you from the very beginning that I knew that this was going to be the way forward for me to bring my knowledge into the wider audience and to the different type of audience that I was used to. And for you, this was like it's something we later discovered that was part of your actual framework of
Yeah.
life to learn about something that is not just material, something else, all these ancient systems and modern as well, that people call esoteric, but they really are, they cannot be more real because they're so practical and they're so relatable. And when people hear themselves through this lens, they resonate with it straight away because that's why it's called true knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thing that blew me away the most was I had been 5 years deep in my own faith journey, and I had gone inward and upward because it was the only way to survive. And what I had uncovered was fascinating. I had multiple mystical experiences. I was shown things. I uncovered my true identity in so many ways. And when I saw your systems and you were showing me, there was a match and there was even more depth. And this is what I try to tell people is it doesn't matter what religion you're in or your belief system. These are maps, are like what I call hidden codes to our existence that are not contradictory to any faith. They only either confirm what you already know or dramatically shock you into an awakened state that you have to look deeply and say, why is this so hard for me to accept?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's blown my mind to see that the synergies, that there's not just one way to find the truth. There are many.
And it seems like one of the first things I told you in the session that we had for you was this change that is coming collectively in the
Yeah.
world for to us as a civilization, which is linked to year 2027, hence the title of this video. And I explained to you how the global frequencies are changing right now, and it's not going to happen just like overnight in 2027. So I explained to you how we are already experiencing this change, where it never sharp overnight. It's always like gradual change, and people feel it. And you intuitively felt it too. This knowledge just kind of legalized what you were already feeling.
Wow.
Oh my God, this is the
That's a
sign.
good sign. Yeah.
Spirits are with us, 100%. This is amazing. I love that. So, yeah, and to you, that was quite profound, I suppose, because we had a lot of conversations on this subject ever since.
Yeah.
And that's why our first live together, you suggested that we talked about what 2027 as a year, as a change mean, and what it means to people, to the civilization, to us, on all the
Yeah.
levels.
Yeah. On all the
So,
levels.
oh,
Well, the reason I'm so interested in this topic is because I have witnessed a shaking in the world for quite some time. It's obvious everywhere you look, people are seeing chaos and also at the same time more awakening stories and spiritual discoveries than ever, right? It's like the information age on fire. However, there's a lot of fear in the lack of context to what's happening, and especially around what it means for businesses and what it means for families.
mhm,
And it comes down to this identity. We talk about identity all the time. And this whole transition into 2027 and beyond, which is so obvious, is an opportunity for humanity to reset in so many ways. It's happening. You see pockets of this. And one of the areas that is happening most in is leadership. And you see going from this hierarchical leadership in business, which I'm very familiar with, to what we call synarchy. And this is more shared leadership, where,
okay.
yeah, and leaders are going to have to change. I've had a couple leaders like this. They were ahead of their time, and they understood the power of empowering others and allowing others to make decisions and pushing. And you see this. You see people creating these pod systems in companies, testing the waters, but which is just a microcosm to what we're going to see, I believe, globally, where we are going to see a major breakdown in institutions in the traditional way, and it will be painful, but we're going to see a huge opportunity in leading in different ways. In our communities, in our businesses, and family units will be changing. And it's all in service of us ultimately getting closer to the truth, to our divine nature. And you can't get there. One of the things I realized in my walk was when I was chasing the things of God so deeply, I recognized that if I'm really to follow this path, this can be really disruptive because at points in time, you know you're supposed to go do something that might be disruptive to a traditional institution or to a traditional way of doing things. And that can be really hard. But that's the reality. Where we, I believe, are going as humanity is a place where we are really all tapped into our true identity and able to be loved and loved properly and not trapped by old ways of doing things, including hierarchies in companies. And we're allowed to freely create for the benefit of each other within a framework. If you're in a company, those still exist, but not in the way we think of today.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, can you give us maybe an example, like so that our audience could understand what you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look at companies, we are really conditioned right now to want to respect hierarchy and just
Hmm.
have a leader at the top, which by the way is a really lonely position. It can be really hard sitting there at the top because when you're there, you recognize, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing exactly. So many CEOs know what I'm talking about. And a lot of that comes from either a lack of understanding who you truly are or a system that is no longer serving you. Because one man or woman shouldn't have all of this authority and power when there's so many capable people. The
Mm.
difference is we have traditionally seen leadership as something better than. So if you're the CEO, you're better than. And in this new way of understanding, we recognize the truth. The truth of our nature is we are all equal. We just have different roles to play. And when
Hmm.
you come into a company with the mindset and understanding that no one is better than anybody else, but we all have different roles to play. And it doesn't mean you can't be a mentor, it doesn't mean you can't be a boss of sorts. But when the mindset is shifted to, I bring something unique, which might be leadership, or it might
Hmm.
be coaching, or it might be finance, this is very different than the traditional hierarchical structure. So the first thing will be probably a mindset shift, which you're seeing. I mean, some companies, some leaders know this intuitively.
Hmm.
Some know it externally. Some people know about the systems that we know of, where this comes from, and it's obvious. It's black and white right there, and you can track it years back. But then eventually it will go into synarchy, which I'm not an expert in, but this is essentially where you'll be able to empower an entire organization of people to operate more independently towards a common goal. You see it in the decentralization of finance and cryptology. You see it in DAOs, which are decentralized autonomous organizations. So you see remnants of this across humanity, but we're going to see a major acceleration. And it's not like a moment in time, like you said, in 2027, it will all change, but a lot is changing now. And we're going to start to see a new age from 2027 onward that will be, for some, very painful, and for others, really exciting, I think.
So we explain why we are saying 2027 and where we
Yeah.
actually took that number from
Yeah,
again.
I would love for you, because when you explained, which I so desperately want people to hear, for
Yeah.
people who have ears to hear, they will hear this. When we went from the cross, when we're going from the cross of planning, and this is in, you can use human design terms because it's probably the best terms to use, and we move into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And you can explain what we've been doing for the last 400, 450 years and why and how it's changing based on this system.
Yeah.
Why don't you do that?
Well, part of the human design teaching and the system that this is one of the modern systems that only existed for around 30 years. And it's like the most recent download to humanity is that we have the so-called incarnation crosses individually. Every person has got like four major activations called gifts that we carry through life. But we also have incarnation crosses globally, and these are like four main frequencies that dominate the world, and we literally, it's like they rule us. So we do everything in conjunction based resonating with those frequencies or with those themes, let's put it that way, themes. Okay,
Mhm.
so and they usually last about, it's like an epoch, it's like an era, and they last between 400 and 450 years usually. And we can predict the development and evolution of humanity by just looking at the wheel, because it's all cyclical, it all goes around the wheel, and it equals around, I
The
think
wheel
it's
is the Mandela wheel.
Mandela wheel, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I think it takes around one platonic year for the whole, for all the crosses to happen, and it's, I think it's around 24,000 years. So anyway, last time the humanity was in the cross of planning that you mentioned was around 24,000 ago, basically. And now we're completing it. We live in exciting times, guys. So we are not in the middle, not like coming to it. We're literally at the end of the cross of
Of an
planning.
epoch. Yeah.
Right, an epoch, a huge epoch. And from 2027, the whole humanity is shifting, moving to, it's like the clock. It's going to be like next,
Yeah.
next program. So people who will be born after 2027, they will be born with a different settings in their, it's like conditioning will be totally different to, it's like they say, oh, you were born in the 80s, you like the child of the 80s, and you're so, people kind of have a concept of who you are, or if you were born in the 90s, or not,
Yeah.
or stuff like that, 50s, 60s. It's the same thing. People might say, oh, you were born on the cross of planning, in the end of the era of the cross of planning, so automatically we know what it is. Well, actually, let me explain what it means. Cross of planning means communities, families, institutions, agreements, contracts. families in terms of like marriages, contracts could be governmental institutions. We do this for you instead. You like we collect taxes. Taxes pay for our wages. We provide the services. These are all agreements. We provide you medical services. You some countries you have free education. What else? Well, different countries obviously got different agreements on that. Families, we love each other. Let's marry. We will have this marriage bound contract. It means that you and I together, it means that we can bring children and kind of like secure. And then the community started growing, countries, civilizations formed, borders, country borders. So it's all happened within this last 450 years of the cross of planning. Plus, a very niche, narrow, specializing in something niche. So how
Mm,
we were taught go nursery, then school, then you just study all the subjects. Like I still don't know why I had to study algebra and geometry and chemistry, because you were supposed to study these subjects and then pick one as like what I mean. I studied in Russia. You have slightly different system of education in America, but it's something like pick your major,
yeah.
right?
Well, and
And
let me just comment because you're moving into exactly where I wanted you to go, which is people who are hearing this will say, "Yeah, yeah, this makes sense," but things are changing, and that's exactly what we're the reason things are changing. And this is when I uncovered these systems with you. I was like, "Oh my God, these are things I've intuitively known. Now there's a language and there's numbers and facts that go along with it that have been here for thousands of years, some more modern." And so now talk about how that changes into the cross of the sleeping phoenix, because people will resonate with the trends that they're starting to see pop up now and why they're popping up now.
yeah, so I was just replying to
Yeah.
to one of my friends. Um, and then you're supposed to pick that, go and study that for 5 years at the university or college, and then go and pick a job in that subject niche and specialize in it and work in it for like 40 years in one company, and then retire and hope to get a good package. These are all agreements, and also this niche, detail oriented kind of professions. And that's how we were programmed by the society. That's what I mean by global frequencies. That's how we conditioned by the societies. But now it's all changing and we're stepping into totally different era. However, because we were born in that era, we will still carry these frequencies with us. That's why there will not there's not going to be an overnight change. For us, we will still be community oriented, family, marriages, I mean, this
Institutions
institutions. Yeah,
will still be hungry for that. But
yeah.
we're going to start to see something different with our eyes pop up all around us, which we are already starting to see.
And the founder of the human design, Ra, was saying that the true the true picture of what the cross of sleeping phoenix is globally will be probably felt when the last person who was born before 2027 dies, which is like 120 years, he said, something like that.
Because the
So
idea is
they,
that frequency will no longer exist, which we
yeah.
know we each give off a unique frequency. We now have science to show this and prove this. This is what's making this so much more fun because people are starting to catch up with the reality, right? So then that frequency is gone and you're onto the sleeping phoenix,
Yeah. So, but
which looks
and
like what?
yeah. So whilst we live, we will all carry this frequency globally, and the more of us there, the more that frequency is present. The fewer of us out there, obviously, in 90, 100 years time, the less and less it's felt, and the new generations will be like they will be behaving in a totally different way. So that's what's coming to an end, and obviously for those and this crosses people can have individually. So depending on the day of date of birth, where you when you were born, you carry a certain frequency personally. So this cross of planning is also one of the crosses on the mandala on the wheel through the year. And some people, like my father is someone who was born on the cross of planning, like literally it was end of February I think it's end of February. It's February, August. It happens 4 times during the year, and yeah, for him it was a perfect time. He just felt amazing. That was
Right at
his
home.
time, right at home. Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's a doctor. He's a beautiful doctor. He specialized in eye surgery, very narrow, very niche. All I know is how to operate on the eye, but I do it beautifully because this is all I'm specializing
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
right?
Now, this is why these crosses that we're each born with, which, by the way, are mind blowing once you see it because it resonates so deeply with you. Mine's the cross of duality, which I've spent my whole life living in this dual or working between this duality, learning the lesson to go down the middle, essentially. And this is why, for some of us, operating in the cross of planning era is hard because some of us, like even myself, even though I'm not a sleeping phoenix, you are, and seem to be surrounded by them.
You have
I have
half
part
of
of it.
cross of planning and you
It's
have half of sleeping phoenix. Yes.
This
So
is
you like
why these are like some of the answers to why am I so uncomfortable? Why is it so hard for me, or why was it so exhausting for me to try to fit into the large organization like everybody else? And for me, it was hard. I did it, and I could do it because there's parts of me that work there, but there's a whole other piece of me that felt empty and felt burned out and knew that there was more. And now I have answers to it, which is it's because I wasn't made to be in that kind of system, and many of us were not. Um, Even though we're not the sleeping phoenix, this is probably why some of those institutions and traditional ways of doing things is hard for some of us. Am I
And that's
correct?
what, yeah, and that's what you and I show to people in our coaching sessions, or I do in my private consultations. I literally just show, I'm like a mirror. I'm showing people whether they are meant for working in big institutions or not, or they are more independent, kind of creative souls that are absolutely like being suffocated in those kind of environments and they need
Yeah.
something totally different, or the opposite, So you can see that this is what we like about these systems. Like I am born on the cross of sleeping phoenix. I am literally someone who is a sleeping phoenix, and I always knew that the way the world operates, I never felt like I fit in. I always felt like I'm the odd one out. Although I could adapt to the circumstances and situations, but I felt sick to my stomach. That's how it felt. Yeah,
So let's talk about the cross of the sleeping phoenix.
sure. Okay, so Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix is like, I could say, is almost like the opposite of what we were experiencing for the last 450 years, because these are the energies that are more solo, more individual. So there are different types. So three types of frequencies: individual, solo. There's people who are really good on their own, and they're meant to be on their own so that they can mutate internally and bring some sort of new way
Yeah,
of
new innovation, new
vision things.
ideas. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so for that they are being suffocated in the systems. They like literally they need freedom of being able to express themselves through their own way. And so that's individual. Then we have tribal energies. So these are the people who really need the support of the community, company, project group, like,
yeah,
some sort of like-minded people, or people that they are related, or, they
yeah,
can
yeah,
trust. So it's called tribal. And then we have collective energies, and these are energies, or these are people, if you have a lot of collective energies in you, it means that all you want is just to communicate with the external world and be part of that external world. You probably thrive in big corporations. You just want to be part of that big thing.
yeah.
Yeah, so
And
you
so the
literally
cross of the sleeping phoenix is more of a solo
more of a
energy.
solo. So out of four frequencies in there, four different gates, we call them gates.
Yeah, because it's
um
literally a cross.
a cross on the wheel,
Yeah,
yes. 4 points, four lines, so two lines, and they go 4 points. Three of them are solo individual, and one of them is tribal. Compared to the cross of planning, where we had let me think quickly, two tribal and two collective, zero individual,
So let's
zero.
talk about what does that mean? What are we likely to see then in a sleeping phoenix?
We're going to see the rise of individual, independent entrepreneurs, creators who, with the support of the tribal, because there will be one tribal energy there, will be creating communities that will not be
Yep.
based, they will be based on a different kind of criteria and not what we used to, like not based on the skill so much or profit or some sort
No,
of
more
gain.
like interest. There's a
Yeah.
lot of thought leaders right now that talk about this, and it makes me laugh when I see it because I'm like, they I don't know if they know, but this is all part of the collective energy change. People are talking about that where we're going next is into smaller tribal communities, essentially, where there's
Hmm.
like-minded people. Maybe there's food interests, maybe there's spiritual interests, these kind of different interests that are not like where we've been, and they'll kind of have their own governance system. And the idea would even possibly be that there's a digital currencies that you're on ramping and off ramping into these tribal communities, likely to take a long time to fully manifest, like you said, but that makes a lot of sense that that's in the cross of the sleeping phoenix.
Yeah, and another thing about sleeping, well, the reason it's called sleeping is because it's not fully activated yet. Because one of the gates in there, the 55th gate, this is where the mutation is currently for the whole humanity is happening. So there are only 64 of them, and we go as an evolution. Evolution goes through one gate at a time as the history of humanity. And today is not about that, but we could literally trace how we as humanity developed by just seeing how these changes happened one gate at a time.
Fascinating. It's fascinating.
And right now we are at the stage out of the 64, the stage of 55th gate and the mutation happening in there. And the phrase sleeping phoenix is only sleeping because it hasn't happened just yet, but 2027 comes and it will happen. So phoenix will be bright, charismatic, because 20 there's a part of that cross is charisma, this theme of charisma. You and I, we both carry that theme
Mm.
in our makeup, in our design. So when we speak, guys, I don't know whether you can see it. I'm trying to show you what it is, but when we speak, it's that voice that coming from the depth, and you cannot not notice the person who carries this. You cannot not listen to them, and this is what global frequency will be like.
Mm.
Charismatic people, charis
More intuitive people,
more
correct? More
into, yeah,
intuitively understanding who they are and how this whole thing works.
exactly,
Yeah.
and more transparent, because we have the frequency of transparency, intimacy and
Yeah.
transparency coming, freedom, power, and presence.
Yeah. So these
These are
all
the
sound really good, but what we, I say the but is because we're seeing a lot of the cross of planning being broken right now. Institutions and what we do in our coaching and I'm so passionate about is to help people understand there's not a problem. Like the last thing you really want to do right now is try and hold on to the old. And I was in this camp for a while where I was trying to maintain what used to be and
Mhm.
resisting the obvious shift that's happening before our eyes. And you have to use discernment and you've got to understand really what's happening. But these things are breaking away for a good reason because what's being born out of this is so powerful and has so much opportunity for our freedom to operate in a new way because we all intuitively know these systems don't work. People really, if they look at themselves honestly, know that the government systems are broken, that the financial institutions are broken, that the religious institutions are broken, but it's and the business institutions are broken, but it's a hard thing to admit because then you say, but then what? Who's going to take care of me? And this is where identity and understanding who you are and understanding what's happening, I feel like comes into a huge play because you can recognize there's just opportunity. A little painful, but Everything right now is an opportunity if you're willing to let go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I agree. We, in the times of change like this, when everything, all the familiar stuff is falling apart and we can see it. I have myself a slight tiny little business background, not like yours, but still nevertheless, and I see small businesses struggling and small businesses closing down everywhere. Well, I live in the UK and I see there, and I can see people talking about it. There's a lot of problems with, because taxation is part of the cross of planning, right? And it's changing, and governments are struggling because the way it always used to work is not
Not
working
working.
anymore. And they increase in taxes, and small businesses like our business has noticed the huge increase in taxes,
Yeah.
and it suffocates, and we are like literally we're struggling, our business is struggling, and I don't know whether it will survive in the next year or two. So it really, really depends on a lot of factors, including whether the government will recognize it in time or not.
Well,
Another
I
thing,
don't think so. I think it's the classic saying, the candle burns brightest right before it burns out. And I
and
think
that's that was I
that's
was
what you're saying.
coming to the next thing to say also, that what the cross of sleeping phoenix is about is you have to learn how to rely on yourself and yourself only, your own individual survival skills, um, and feel where the energy is taking you, like what resonates with you right now, not what the conditioning is telling you you have to do because your parents did it, or you were taught, where it is taking you right now, what skill maybe you need to learn, what community maybe you need to join, where maybe you need to move, you know.
Yeah,
uh,
when you say you need to rely on yourself, what you're really saying is you you need to be able to know who you are so that you can understand what you need. Because we're not
exactly.
very good at understanding what we need typically. We follow the crowd or we follow our preconditioned state, which most of us are not aware of. I was not until you helped me see a lot of my conditioning. And once you see that, now you realize how easily you are controlled by your environment. So it's not that you're left to fend for yourself as much as you are. It's important to look within and understand what you need in this big transition that you're feeling, that a lot of people should be feeling already. Can
Oh,
you
yeah.
can you talk about the lock and key? I love this understanding of these new locks and keys as it relates to leadership and other elements, I think, of society that are
Yeah.
happening at the same time, right?
Yeah, I don't think I'm ready to talk about it in details, but I can explain the concept. So imagine this. So we as a civilization, we have a certain set of locks, and each lock represents a certain area of us as a civilization, including leadership, including the way we work, including the way we take care of ourselves, and all these things like they're called locks. These like main concepts of how we do something.
Yeah,
And then every era has got their own keys to the locks. Like the cross of planning uh, had the locks that were fitting in those keys, and by unlocking them, we had certain frequencies, which basically kind of like explain some of them already, but there are more.
yeah,
And now with the change of that of those keys, we're getting a new set of keys basically for those locks, and that's
yeah.
what's changing. And one of the topics that you and I discussed was the way the leadership is going to be like, right? So
Yes,
in the previous set of keys, we had a key 62 for the leadership, which for those who is not familiar with I Ching or human design or Gene keys, 62 is all about intellect. Intellect, and it's kind of like the promises of the future, where leaders were, politicians, leaders were telling us they were like smart, obviously using their intellect, and we were voting for those who we felt were smarter and who could promise us with the, and 62 is like really is good with the words, it's like wordsmiths, So we would vote for those who we believed were the best wordsmiths and could present us the patterns of the future that they were taking us into.
Yeah.
And that was the type of leader that we would vote for and elect, right?
Or who would get promoted so often in companies. And
Yeah,
sometimes
but
people are saying, how did that happen? Well, there's other forces at play, let's say.
but the
But go ahead.
joke is that those wordsmiths not necessarily could deliver, right? They were just
Not always,
words.
yeah. Yeah.
They were just words, yeah, and not well, exactly, not always. But we would believe more when people were leaders were having those kind of qualities.
Yeah.
Now, in the next era, we're going to have a different type of leader, uh, which is characterized and represented by the 53rd gate or hexagram or jinki. And to me, it's kind of like it's hard to predict how it will look. I can only
Well,
like
yeah.
describe what
Just
53rd 50.
describe the 53rd gate or key.
Yeah, so well, first of all, it's the energy of beginnings.
Yeah.
It's a startups. So people who are really good at starting, initiating something. So maybe they will be like something to do with startups. I don't know. Also, the gift of maturity. So someone who's mature and someone who can who believes not in just expansion globally, like all these big corporations using cheap labor, cheap materials just for the sake of profit and expansion. 53rd is saying you have to be mature and you have to be wise with the resources. You have to go back to the roots and be more ecological, more strategical, all those things.
Yep. Yep. And as it relates to leadership, is there anything in there about, I think I remember you talking more about an intuitive leader as opposed to an intellectual leader.
No, I think this was going to be, yeah, this gate is more about abstract as well. So while 62 was more logic, this one is more abstract, which means more storytelling, more. So I think it will be like maybe business leaders or thought leaders who will be a caring deeply about maybe ecology, sustainability, um
People.
storytelling and people about like past. Let's look back on our past,
Mm,
let's see how our ancestors were doing things, that kind of stuff, rather than
yeah.
scientific and
Yeah.
technological breakthrough at the cost of the planet.
Yeah. Well, and you can see, like, you can imagine, I can imagine that if all of these institutions and old ways of doing things are going to be breaking over a period of time, it would make a lot of sense that what emerges out of that breaking is something that is more local. There's something I learned through my walk. It's called the economy of need. I felt like I was being shown a new economy. The currency was love, and the the demand was need based. And it was really hard because I was consulting business leaders and trying to also explain to them a need based economy, which means what you do with your profits also changes because you start to look at what do I actually need as an individual? What does my company actually need? Not want, not desire, but need, and recognizing that there's more than enough to go around,
Hmm.
which we know there's enough resources to go around, we know there's enough money to go around. The problem isn't that, it's a matter of distribution of those resources and money due to old ways of doing things with scarcity fear-based mindset. So it makes it logically and intuitively makes a lot of sense that the future leader, which is already starting, needs to start to think smaller in order to start thinking bigger.
Yeah, I don't know
So
whether, and I'm not sure whether we will see it in our lifetime or these are kind of leaders that we will be born after 2027. But I was listening recently to the founder of Jinkies, Richard Rudd, and he had his enlightened moments as well. So he was like revealed It's like the door opened a little bit for
Yep.
him to see where, as humanity, we're moving, and that's how he wrote his book on Gene Keys, and he continues writing. He's an amazing, amazing
Mystic.
sage and mystic. If you
Uh,
guys want to know more, go check it out. Gene Keys on YouTube.
Mind blowing. Yeah.
Yeah, gene as like genetics, and keys as like key to unlock. Yeah. So he was saying that he notices business struggling as well. He's been talking about this new system of synarchy compared to hierarchy, and not many people understand that just yet, but it's coming. And he also said in this video, recent video on YouTube, that he says, I don't know what's going to happen in 2027 or just soon after, but I definitely know that we're, as humanity, we will be all right, but in some like long-term future. Because yes, in the short-term future, and I can only speculate here, guys, this is we're not like looking at the crystal ball right now. We're just like thinking logically, like, well, if the structures are falling apart, if these frequencies are changing, it means that there might be some tough times. So buckle up
Yeah.
and learn about who you are, because in the times of uncertainty, it's more it's never been as important as it is now to know who you truly are, so that you can adapt in the situation and use your gifts, your skills in this times of change. Maybe you are the leader that people will need, and you're right now sitting in an office in the corner, doing the job that your soul knows that is not what
Yeah.
you're meant to be doing in this life. And learning about who you truly are might unlock that potential of yours, because we're all conditioned by, I mean, peers, societies, cultures, that just be, most people just be the average Joe, don't
Yeah.
stick your neck out.
Well, I think
And yeah,
the other opportunity, and we talk a lot about this with the people we work with, is when you start to learn who you are and you learn about these systems. I call them, like I said, the hidden codes to our existence, because they are, honestly. You start to understand what's happening, and you're no longer controlled by it because you're aware of it. For example, I'm going to give one example. And this stuff I used to think was crazy. I used to think astrology was just this silly thing. But the more I've learned about it and understand how everything's connected, it makes sense. Even if even in my faith, if God created everything, of course, the planets would have an effect on us, and they would be directly linked to who we are. But what's so fun for me to do now is to watch as there are transits in play, or as these gates are in play, and you watch humanity respond. You watch the news change. You watch individuals change. You watch your circumstances change, and you're fully aware of what's happening. For example, Pluto is in gate 60 in human design terms, and gate 60 is the gate of limitations and restrictions. And it went into that in 2020, COVID, right? And it's in it now. And it came back in recently in August. It came August 20th, I believe. And I'm laughing because I immediately started to see more restrictions in my life, like lots of things where I was running my head up against it. But now I'm aware of what it means. And the point of this is it's always for our benefit, always. But I don't have to be controlled by it. I can respond to it. So the point of it is for me to learn to radically accept my circumstances and radically accept the restrictions that are in front of me, not try to fight them. And in the radical acceptance of them, my job is to learn how to create and innovate out of them or within them. And it happened to me this week a few times where I was met with like an intense restriction, but I'm aware. I know exactly what's happening. pulled back and said, okay, I'm supposed to learn something here because this is the current gate we're in. And then boom, I no longer am I expending tremendous amounts of energy fighting. Why? It's kind of like COVID. Why is this happening? And this is so wrong and all of these things versus seeing, oh, this must happen. Like this is out of my control. So what can I do in the situation? And if I'm not mistaken, we're about to go from gate 60, so until December. So
yeah,
my hope is that
we're in the gate 60 till December,
yeah,
which Which doesn't mean that sit still and just obey the restrictions and limitations. No, it's the
No.
opposite because it's like if you want to be,
Innovation.
yeah, the most creative moments happen when you actually have just a pen and paper and you're
Yeah.
like limited to just pen and paper, and all of a sudden you sit down like Walt Disney did in his own times, and you start drawing those little Mickey Mouses.
Yes.
um, or wherever. People were so creative during
Yeah.
COVID times.
Yeah.
And so much changed because of it in the world. And so it is right now. I experienced last week. I was also kind of like limited and restricted in a way, and in a way, at certain point, I was like, I refuse to feel like I'm a victim of circumstance, and I chose be creative. And I spent the whole week in my creative mode, and I loved it. And I
Yeah.
started this process of doing one live a day, two reels a day, and it brought so much joy and energy to me and the people around me. So, and yes, it ends in the end of, what did we say, December.
I think December, yeah, December, mid-December or something, and it moves into gate 41,
Which
correct?
is already, which, yeah, so Pluto is a kind of planet that goes forward, 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 then it pauses for us visually from Earth, and then goes retrograde. It's just because of the different trajectories. So that right now it went backwards into and retrograde mode into the 60s. So, but it did go into the 41st and stay there for quite a few months. Now in the 60s, but then back into the 41st, and it will stay there for 3 years. Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, yeah. Which is all about, my understanding, this is all about where you're basically, the shadow state is fantasy,
Mm.
and you're looking, the feeling that people will have most likely is a feeling of certainty about things changing and that there's going to be a new way of doing things, and yet hard to bring some of those things into fruition. So
So
there's,
44,
yeah,
yeah, 41st
go ahead.
gate is in times of lack, people start fantasizing about what what they want, what they can have, about wants and wishes and desires. So this is the time of, it's the very first gate on the mandala. The astrological or human design year starts with the 41st gate. And
Yeah,
what do we do when we are in this new year stage? We start thinking about what this year is going to bring us. We start planning, dreaming, fantasizing about this year ahead, some affirmations, and all these things happen in the beginning of the year. So this is literally what it is, because we are coming into the new stage. We are having Pluto as a planet of transformation on the collective level, going through the 41st gate for 3 years. So we, civilization, will be in the stage of kind of like lack and restrictions brought to us by the 60s, and this situation of change. And we will be dreaming what we will be dreaming about, what
new ways of doing
new
things.
ways of doing things.
And
Yeah.
the goal is, my understanding, which is always the goal of life, is to stay in the present moment as much as possible and let life flow through you and not try to force. Because my understanding is it could be a hard time for people because it's a time to be thinking about the future, but you're not able to fully manifest it yet. Many
Hmm.
things will be manifested, but you'll have to be able to be present, be grateful for what you have, and find manifestation in the moment instead of dreaming, instead of trying to put into place these fantastical ideas you have about the future, and instead what's the reality of what you can do with what you have now.
Yeah, but the
You know,
idea of us talking about these things now live is not about scaring anyone or showing how amazingly smart we are that we know these things. No, the idea was just to highlight the importance of understanding who you are, what is going on in the world, and to equip you with this tool so that you were better prepared and you would not shocked, panicked, all this lost, depressed, all these things.
Yeah.
rather than, okay, I can see, I heard about this, I can see it happening. Okay, I know what I need to be doing, this kind of stuff. So if you want to learn more, message us. If you want to have a conversation
Yeah.
about yourself, family, work, job situation, just reach out, because that's
Yeah.
what we literally, that's what we do. We help people navigate through these challenging times.
Yeah. And I would add before we maybe close out is um, there are answers to the most burning questions. I had questions for so long about who I was, why I existed, how does this all work? And there are clear-cut answers that I didn't know existed. And so
Mm,
instead of needless suffering or guessing, you don't have to find it through the way that we've found, but many people will, as we've seen. And it's incredible. And to see to understand yourself, to understand your family, my 5 kids, I know
mm,
each one of them. I understand their purpose, their gifts, their shadow states. I know what's motivating them. I can speak life into them. It is mind blowing. And I intuitively could do some of this before, but there's always this like gray area of like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's happening. This eliminates so much of the gray. And you see it in the kids. I mean, my kids are like, how do you know all this stuff? I'm like, it's not me. You were designed, and we don't have to guess. It's beautiful. It's really
yeah.
beautiful. It takes a lot of the friction out of life and allows us to flow more with our natural state. Yeah.
And people just, well, when I heard my story for the first time through this lens, I cried so much because someone saw me for the first time for who I am, and I didn't have to feel guilty for what I was feeling and doing, because I knew that I had my own shadows and it's okay. And
Yeah.
every shadow's got a seed of gift and seedy highest frequencies. And I just I accepted. I accepted it all. And it's almost like I became friends with myself for the first time, and I was not tormented anymore. And if you ask me today, I'm so content with who I am. I'm happy. I know what I'm here to do. I know my gifts, and I see it unfolding every day. And it's just something I would wish for everyone.
Yep.
And even like yesterday was just like we were discussing a character in the film, and I said, "Oh, she must be." I was using numerology and numerical psychology knowledge, and I said, "Oh, she must have these numbers in her date of birth, probably 5 and 7." I said, and then we checked later, and she was exactly 5'7". It just like you can recognize once you're in it
Yeah.
deeply, you
It's
can see
undeniable.
someone's behavior and patterns, and you're like, "Oh my God, it's
It
probably
gives
that
you
and that."
grace for them. It gives you grace because
And it
you don't have to wonder why is so and so doing that. Why are they like that? There's if you're not strong enough to just let go, which we should all learn to let go anyways, you can at least have a little help by knowing who they really are.
And if you really want, you can use that as the what do you, well, it's kind of a way to improve your situation if you're at work and you know your bosses and colleagues'
Oh my gosh.
dates of birth. You literally know the language you need to speak with them, or with your spouse, or with your children.
Yeah.
Not your language, because they don't speak your language; they speak theirs. So it's like learning another language. If you learn their language, they're gonna love you so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you
Mm-hmm.
come a foreign country and you are clearly a foreigner, but you're able to speak their language, people just love you so much immediately, right?
It's like Mel Gibson in that movie What Women Want.
Yeah.
You can hear their thoughts. I mean, really, like I said, for my kids, it's crazy. And for the people we work with, we really understand who they are, and it's unlocking. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Right. So,
Fantastic.
shall we round up then? So
Yeah.
I think it's been amazing for our first live. I hope that people who will be listening to this and recorded will reach out, that they will reach out, because
Yeah.
it's so important to have these conversations going. And we have so much coming with the business that we have, Activate.
Yeah.
Maybe will be one of the this is going to be the first video of the series called Activate Conversations.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
and
Yeah,
just
we've
stay
been doing
tuned.
this behind the scenes for a while, so it's time to bring it
It's
out and let more people have opportunities to discover who they are if they so want.
So
Yeah.
thank you everyone who've been watching, who've been popping in and liking this live and this video if you're watching it recorded. Thank you for all your comments that are coming. And thank you, Chad, for this amazing conversation.
Thank you, Svetlana. Till next
Bye.
time.
Till next
Bye.
time.